I don't know about you, but I've wasted a lot of money on cars, and I'm not the only one. In fact, most people make car buying mistakes, and that's the whole purpose of this podcast that we're doing. So I want to give you a few quick stats before we start. So the average car payment in the US for a new car is $749 and $529 for a used car. That is so much money, y'all. And the average loan terms are going between 5 to 6 years now. It's not your 3 to 5 years. Lastly, like cars just depreciate in value and you lose a lot of money very quickly. And so I wanted to bring in a fellow friend and mentor of mine, David Howson, the GOAT, the expert in all things car buying. He's been really impactful for my own journey with personal finances and better understanding all things car market. But he brings 40 plus years of experience in the car industry, actually running a dealership. And so we want to pick his brain a little bit so that you all are learning from the lessons. So you're not wasting 10, 20, $30,000 in cars. So yeah, welcome, David. I'm
Thank you.
glad to have you here.
Glad to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me on.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your story. Like what got you in the car industry, why you transitioned out, and all that stuff.
Well, as you mentioned, I spent about 40 years in the car business. My father was an automobile dealer. My grandfather was an automobile dealer, but they called them distributorships back then. They didn't even call them dealerships. They were more directly in line with the manufacturer. So I'm a third generation car dealer. Um, when I was a sophomore in high school, my parents decided that I was going to come in and join the family business. So that was nice to know that I had a job waiting for me when I got done for college, but I really didn't know what I was getting into. I was just following in my family's footsteps. I had a long history of the car business, grew up in it, and washed cars and changed oil and cleaned the lot and did all those things and just kind of moved in. When I graduated from college in 1986, I graduated on a Friday and started working on a Monday as a salesperson in the dealership. And then about a couple of years later, my father was in ill health. I needed to take over. So at the ripe age of 25 years old, I was running a multi-million dollar Pontiac and Honda dealership in 1986. Didn't know what I was doing, but learned as fast as I could. Spent about 26 years as a new car dealer. Sold Pontiac in about 2000. Sold the Honda franchise in 2012. Prior to selling that, I opened up an independent used car lot and ran it for about 16, 17 years. And then when COVID hit, it drove the price of used cars through the roof, and the availability of used cars kind of fell to nothing. So my choice was to stay in the business and take on debt to fund it, or to get out of the business. So I chose to get out of the business. And I always I always looked at being a dealer as what I did, but not who I was. And then, so when I got out of the car business, I sort of found the financial coaching. I had been coaching and teaching personal finance for a while, sort of on the side to my employees, to kids, to certain different sets of people, and it always kind of inspired me and motivated me. So when I got into financial coaching, I started seeing some of the things that were prevalent in the automobile industry and thought, there's another perspective here, and I needed to look at it from a different side, especially now that I was a buyer, not a seller. So I learned some things very quickly about what goes on in the car business, things that I didn't think still happened that do. And as a financial coach, have thought, I need to come up with something and offer some insight to people, because there's some things going on that could save a lot of people a lot of money if they knew about it. And that's what I'm here to do, to help share that with people here today.
I love that. Yeah, I think your expertise in this is just unbelievably helpful to everyone from a college student buying their first car, or even someone's 40, 50, they keep upgrading their car and they wonder why they're still broke, right? So yeah, just for the audience, yeah, David Howson's been a friend of mine for the past couple of years, and he helps individuals, families, small businesses get organized with their personal finances, better learn tips and tricks and mistakes to avoid. And so for this particular episode, we're focusing on car dealership secrets, buying tips, other financial mistakes that we all really want to avoid because we want more money in our pocket, right? Right.
Yep.
So, yeah, thanks for sharing your story. I think it's really insightful to have someone on the other side of the table with that kind of experience, because as like on my end, I was like an ill-informed buyer. The first car that I bought from a dealership, I was like, I'm getting a used car, I'm getting a deal, but I financed it with as little down payment as possible, didn't look at the interest rate, bought the warranty, got all the stuff, and a car that I spent like 15K on ended up only being worth like 7 or 8. And so immediate money loss there. So I hope that this content will impact you, the viewer, so that you're not losing a whole bunch of money. Right. All right. So if you can summarize maybe the top 3 financial mistakes that I don't want to call them uninformed buyers are making, but just people who don't know what they don't know with car buying, like what are 3 financial mistakes that you see when people buy from a dealership or just buying a car in general?
First thing I would say is letting your emotions play a part in the purchase process. Um, as a dealer, my job, as a dealer and a salesperson, my job was to get you as emotional and as fired up and as excited about buying a new car, getting that new car smell, seeing it in your driveway, showing it to your friends, getting as emotional as you possibly could so that, you know, number one, I could sell you the car. And number two, I could have the opportunity to potentially make as much money as I could. And that's a dealer's motivation. That's a business's motivation to make money. And I don't ever condemn that. But now that I'm on the other side, I want to try to help you save as much money as possible. The second thing that I would do is assuming that you're always going to have a car payment. And when you assume that you're always going to have a car payment, you sort of fall into a trap of doing some things on an ongoing basis that don't serve you, i.e., rolling negative equity into your next vehicle. And that means buying a car, financing it for 6 or 7 years, as you said the average term is, and then in 3 or 4 years you get kind of tired of it and you think, I want a new car, but I owe more on my car than it's worth, so what do? I go to the dealership and they say, don't worry about it. We'll finance it for 7 years this time. We'll get your payment where you need it. We'll roll whatever the negative equity that you have in your car into the next one, fit it into your budget, and you'll be just fine. So if you always assume you're going to have a payment, you can kind of fall into a trap that leads you down a never-ending hole. And then the third thing I think is assuming that the dealer has your best interests at heart. And unfortunately, he or she doesn't. And the things that they're selling you are of value, and unfortunately, most of them aren't. You do need a car. You need a car to get back and forth to work, to take your kids to school, to support your family. I get that, but the dealer's motivation primarily is to make as much money as they can on the vehicle, and that doesn't serve your interests. So, some assumptions that you make and emotions play into it. Those are probably the 3 top things that I see people making mistakes when they look at getting into the market for a vehicle.
Yeah, I love that. And looping back to the emotional side, because something I see quite a bit is just like impulse purchasing. And most people think, oh, Amazon, Target, like these small things, but it happens with cars, big purchases
Absolutely.
too. And looping in the monthly payment mentality that, oh, it's not that big of a purchase because it's only $400, $500 a month. I am curious, do you have any stories or experience about buyers just coming to the lot just to look and then they end up buying more car than probably they should have and things like that? Is that something that's pretty common, or?
Can't tell you the number of times somebody was getting in a car telling me or their salesperson, I really had no intention in purchasing a car today. And that's a real thing because of the emotion that comes into it, but also because of what the dealer's trained to do. The statistics for a dealership, and we learned this pretty quickly, if you don't sell someone while they're on the lot visiting you, your chances of selling them ever are almost non-existent. It was almost like an 87 to 90% chance that if they didn't buy while they were there, they would never buy from you. So if you're wondering why salespeople are aggressive or pushy, it's because if they don't sell you, they're not going to get the chance to do it again. So they want you leaving in a vehicle. So if you come in just to look, hey, what are you looking at? Well, I'm looking maybe at something 4-door or whatnot. Great. Is it for you or for someone else? And then the ball starts rolling down the hill and you get caught up in it, rolling with it. And next thing you know, you're leaving in a new car you had no intention of buying.
Yeah, I think it's insane the amount of psychology that goes into just the sales process. Because
Mhm.
as you're describing that, I'm getting flashbacks to that Nissan dealership. And I was going there. I saw this on Auto Trader for $9,000, $10,000. Look, it's a good deal. I'm just going to go pay whatever sticker price that's on Auto Trader,
Mhm.
right? But then I go there and yeah, just really nice. Offer me the water. We're just having a conversation, take the test drive, and it just feels like we're best friends, right? He's relating about like my experience in nursing school with his partner being in nursing school, whatever thread to establish that rapport. I think it's so important to recognize those sales tactics. And yeah, most people want genuine connection. I'm sure sales people love just having that conversation too. So it's not innately bad, but it is also for the purpose of selling the vehicle and making the car purchase,
Yeah,
right?
the first step in the road to a sale is to build rapport. So find common ground, find common interests, build that friendship. And the number one reason we found as dealers, the number one reason that people bought their car is because they liked their salesperson.
I believe it.
So if you're
Absolutely.
likable, if you can make yourself likable, if you can find common ground, you're on the road to a purchase.
Yeah. I do have a question. You submitted one of these questions to ask, so I'm intrigued by it. What is the most dangerous place in a dealership for the buyer and why? I like that question.
Most dangerous place in an automobile dealership is called the F&I office, and F&I stands for Finance and Insurance. It is the office that you will go to once you have agreed to a purchase price and or a payment and or a down payment and or financing terms. You will go to the F&I office and meet the nice F&I manager, and he will provide you with the financing options. And it's not just financing, it's products that go with the financing. And it might even be, if you're not even financing a car, there will still be products that will be offered to you for sale, even if you're paying cash. The last new car that I bought for my wife and myself. It was during COVID, and we wanted to buy a used car, but there weren't any. We had essentially had to order a new car and buy it, and 9 months later it came in, and we made it clear we were paying cash. And the F&I lady came in, sat down with us, and she offered us a starting. I don't know if they called it a premium or a platinum or some kind of package, but she said this package has all these things in it, and it's only $15,000. And I said, no thanks. And she said, well, okay, we've got the gold package and it has this number of products. And I said, no thanks. And then she said, okay, I've got the silver package and it only has this products. And I said, no thanks. And she said, okay, I'll sell you just the service contract for this price. And I said, no, thank you. And she said, okay, I'll sell you the service contract at $100 over my cost. And my wife grabbed my arm and looked at me and said, but it's only $100 over her cost. And I said, honey, please let me handle this. This is the only thing I've done well in my life, and I know what I'm doing. Please let me handle this. And I told her no. And she walked away stunned that I wouldn't buy any of the products. But I was paying cash, and she tried to hit me for $15,000 worth of add-ons. And I was like, good gosh, things have not, I mean, things have not changed, or actually things have gotten worse in the car business since I left it. So there's lots of things that can happen, and none of them are in your favor unless you're prepared for them.
Yeah, what I think is really interesting is that like sales tactic of just downselling so that these other products seem like good deals and
Hmm.
whatnot. So you're still
Yeah.
spending more than you would have, but it's
Mhm.
less than what it could have been
Right.
with the illusion that we saved money as a result,
Yeah. And
right?
that F&I manager, when you go into that office and he presents you with the options, he'll present a menu. We were trained to present menus for people so that you've got the platinum, the gold, the silver, and the bronze, or whatever the name of it is. And it's so that you get to choose the menu, but the menu is loaded with things that, quite frankly, you probably don't need. If you see value in them, great. But most of them, in my opinion, you don't need. You can probably fund yourself, but through different methods that you and I teach when we financially coach people. But you're going to get presented with a menu of things. They're going to have different payments, and you're going to get to choose. Hey, I want the one for the 579. That's the silver package, and it has the service contract and the credit life and the etching on the window for my anti theft protection. And that's how it'll be presented. That's why it's a dangerous place, because it's got lots of products and things that, quite frankly, you don't need. And if you're prepared, you can save money avoiding all that stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. And we're probably going to get more into the financing and the F&I traps in a bit. I am curious, while we're talking more like general stuff about the car buying process, what would
Mhm.
you say are maybe like the top three things a buyer can do or needs to know before they even walk into a dealership so that they're prepared and not taken advantage of?
Three things that I would think. First, know what it is that you're going to buy. Don't walk in wandering. It's like going to a grocery store when you're hungry. Um, if you go to a dealership full of emotion about the possibility of getting a new car without thinking about what it is that you're going to buy and giving yourself some options, you can fall into a trap pretty quickly. The second thing is how much. How much are you wanting to pay as far as the total price for a vehicle, or the price minus the value of your trade-in, or what your budget is as far as a payment goes if you're going to finance it. And then to also, it's really key to understand when you walk into a dealership to know that you can walk back out without buying a car. That's really, really critical, because a lot of people walk in and they feel like they're sucked into this vortex that they can't get out of. And you've got 2 feet right under your legs, and you can get up from that chair and you can walk out. And that is the most powerful thing that you have at your disposal. So if you mentally prepare yourself for what you're going to buy, how much you're going to pay, and that you don't have to do it right then and there, you've got all the tools you need to either reach the best deal you can or take the time you need to enable you to do it.
Yeah, what I find really interesting about that last part, it reminds me, I forgot who said it, but when it comes to negotiating, that the person with the most power is the one who is like more able to walk away from the purchase. So if you need the car less than the car salesperson needs their commission check,
That's
then
right.
you do hold the power
That's right.
and you have every option to go to another dealer. You can go buy it online, all that stuff. So I think that is super great. Something you said, it sparked this question for me, but you didn't like explicitly say it. I'm curious, do you recommend when you're buying a car at a dealership to have someone with you, like like a sounding board, either a parent or someone who's more experienced, or even just like a buddy to go there with you to the dealership?
If you're not completely confident in your abilities to handle the transaction, absolutely. Take whoever you can, even if it's just an emotional support animal, but a friend or a mom or a girlfriend or a buddy. In the car business, we called them second basemen, and we kind of frowned on them because they would interject things into the deal that were not emotion based. They would interject logic and ration, and we were like, you stay over there and don't talk anymore. But yeah, if you're not comfortable with the process, completely comfortable with the process, I highly recommend you bring someone. And the best dealers will help and address that person directly. The best salesperson will take that person's being there as what it's intended for, and the worst will look at it as a threat, and you need to see that. And if they do, they're not working for your best interest.
Yeah. Something I do want to touch on later. We'll talk about like some of the positives
Mhm.
with dealers and things to highlight in there. So we'll get
Yeah,
back to that.
sure.
But I want to go to this next section about like negotiation and sales tactics
Mhm.
with us as consumers who are not we're not professional negotiators.
Mhm.
Like these salespeople, they're in and out. Maybe they're having like 10, 20, 30 conversations every day on the phone or in
Right.
person, and this is what they're trained for. So how can us as beginners walking into a dealership be ready for that negotiating other than what we already mentioned, being able to walk out from the negotiating table?
Yeah, I think it helps to know some of the things that you might face to be able to negotiate well. There are essentially four factors that are negotiable in the process of buying a sale: the price of the car, the price of the vehicle that you're buying, the value of your trade-in, the down payment if you're financing it, and then the payment if you're financing it as well. Those are the four negotiable areas that you'll need to know sort of how to navigate the process. And in a lot of dealerships, what you'll see when you've landed on a car and you've agreed on a car, let's get my trade appraised, let's sit down and talk numbers. When you sit down, they'll come to you with a sheet of paper and it'll be divided into four squares. And it's called a four square deal sheet. That's what almost all dealers use. And in that four squares, you've got payment of the vehicle, you've got value of the trade, you've got down payment, and you've got payment. And that payment will probably have two or three different options. It'll have an 82-month finance term and a 36-month lease term or payment. And so what they're attempting to do is to get you to narrow down in one of those four squares which one holds the most value to you, which one is most important to you. And if you say, well, my budget's $600, they'll mark out the price, they'll mark out the trade-in, they'll mark out the down payment, and they'll say, so if we can get you a payment at $600, can we wrap this up today? And if you say yes, you are about to get as little vehicle as you can with as much profit and product built in for that $600 payment, and probably for as long as they can do it, and as long as they come close to that $600 payment, you will walk away with it, but you won't have gotten a good deal. You won't have gotten the most for your trade. You'll probably have to put more down than you planned on doing. Or once you say, I'm okay with $600 for my payment, they'll say up to, and then they won't say anything else. And you'll say, well, didn't want to go over 650. Great. So they mark out the 600, put 650, and the process starts again. So know that that's probably going to be a facet of the negotiations and where you're going to focus your efforts. You need to focus your efforts on the price of the car, the value of your trade-in, how much down you plan to put, if you do plan to put, and don't make that negotiable, and then the payment. But I wouldn't put it in their arms for the payment. If you know what you're paying for a vehicle, if you know the value of the trade, that difference is there. You know about what a reasonable interest rate is, so you can do your own payment calculation. And if your payment is different than their payment, something's off.
Yeah, I think that's so like important to know that like something that I noticed as you're explaining that is kind of the goal is not to necessarily distract, but have you focus on the wrong part of the purchase. And I forget the term, what it's called, but like, is it like out the door price is what we're looking for? Like how much this
Drive
car,
out.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
like how much we're actually spending on the car out the door. Um, and I think that's so powerful in terms of like the verbiage that we should know walking into these dealerships. And like you said, having those numbers already ready, if you have more information about your own car, your own financial situation than the salesperson does, then that also gives you negotiating power.
No question.
Um, and something I did want to touch on is when it comes to this is not specifically about negotiating, but like financing. I know you mentioned you can kind of predict what the difference is with a trade-in and the car you're buying, and like coming in with either your own finance offer or knowing what to expect if you're financing through the dealership. Do you have any recommendations when it comes to financing a car, and or if you'd even recommend it at all?
Well, as someone who's offering a class on buying a car, people may want to finance a car, so I'm going to give you as much information as I can about however you want to do it. As far as my opinion as a financial coach, quite frankly, right now, it doesn't matter. If you want to go finance a car, I want to try to save you money. So the way that you need to look at it is it's perfectly okay to go arrange for financing before you ever go to the dealership. Go to your bank, go to your credit union, go to whatever financing source that you have, and tell them about what your plan is as far as the amount of money that you want to spend because you've done a little research. Have that in hand so that when the dealership comes back with whatever it is they come back with, know that you've got another option to walk out and go get that done somewhere else. Um, and that's probably one of the better things that you can do, but also just to understand that you have as many options in the financing as they do, and you just have to narrow down and determine what options that you're willing to consider. And all the factors that play into it, so that you're able to get that best deal that you can.
I love that. Yeah, I don't know if y'all caught that, but David does have a course. It's called Don't Get Taken for a Ride. We're going to talk more about it later, or if you look in the description, we'll probably just add the instructions on how to get access to that. But more on that later. I'm super excited that you're even putting this together. So this whole podcast episode is kind of like a sneak peek, and so to get you really fired up about saving money on cars
You
because
bet. You
yeah, we
bet.
don't need to be wasting money on cars.
Nope.
We don't.
That's right.
Um, I am curious. So there's a lot of terms around like paying for a car. You could buy it in cash, you could finance, you can lease it, something about an umbrella policy. I don't know. I am curious, like, what are some things to we should take into consideration when we're figuring out like how we should pay for a car, and specifically to cash, car notes, and a lease.
So as a financial coach, if somebody comes to me, even as a dealer, when people came to me and said, "What's the best way to buy a car?" I would always say, "Buy used and pay cash." And the reason I would say buy used is because new cars depreciate at least 60% of their value within the first 5 years, somewhere between 10 to 20% the minute you drive it off the lot, depending on what you paid for it. So that's sort of my first thing. If you want to know the best way to buy a car, buy used and pay cash so that you're not paying for that depreciation and you're not tying yourself for a long-term debt that might not serve you long term. I'm not expressing an opinion here on that. If I was your financial coach, I might be expressing an opinion there, but I'm not right now. But if you want to finance, you need to know the things that are going to be thrown at you and the options that are available. You need to kind of have a budget set in mind. You don't want to lay it out on the table for them, but you need to know what is in your budget that you can spend as far as financing goes. They are going to present you with lease options. Leases sound wonderful. You've got low payments for shorter terms to be able to get as much car as you want. And while that sounds good, um, it's the worst, in my opinion, as a financial coach and as a dealer, frankly, it's the worst way to buy a car to lease. Because you make the payments that you would have normally financed and you walk away at the end of 3 years and got to do it again because you walk away with nothing. You can buy the car at the end of the lease, but it's very expensive. You can, you can buy the car and try to sell it yourself. And a lot of people during COVID tell these success stories that they made money when they turned in their lease car. That's COVID. COVID's over. It was an anomaly. It ain't ever happening again. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But I'd recommend buying cash. If you're going to finance, make sure you know what your budget is and try to get the shortest term that you can so that you're in debt for as little a period as possible. And for whatever it's worth, try to stay away from leases if at all possible, because I can't tell you the number of times I've had financial coaching clients that say, "I'm 6 months into my lease for 4 years and I want to get out. What do I do?" And I go, "I'm so sorry. There's
Yeah,
really not much you can do."
I never really understood leases because I was like, I thought leases were like apartments, like you're renting an apartment, and
Mhm.
effectively that is what you're doing. You're
That's right.
renting the car,
Right.
and you're not like it's not yours to own until you buy it at the end of the lease, right?
If you buy it at the end of the lease,
If you
and
buy
if
it,
you buy
yeah,
it at the end of the lease, you're not buying it for a good price. You can finance that remainder, but you've kind of now turned a bad deal into a worse deal. Um, and there's no good news about leasing in my humble opinion.
yeah. Well, I appreciate that, and I definitely want to highlight what you said about the depreciation curve of car buying. And for those kind of like a math 101, depreciation is just the value of the car going down, and it kind of tapers off after a certain point. Some people call it a hockey stick or whatever, where it doesn't depreciate as fast. But like you said, 20% of the value gets lost like within that first year, right? So if you're buying a $50,000 car, you've already lost $10,000 in that first year.
At least.
And over the first 5 years, being about 60% of that, that hurts, right? That's like on that $50,000 car, it's $30,000 lost. And probably by that time, you want a different car or a new car. So that cycle of buying new and then trading for another new and trading for another new, you're eating all that cost of the car. And so, kind of on the flip side, I guess the tip to that would be if you're buying a used car, perhaps older than 5 or 6 years would be probably the best time to buy it if you can financially swing it. But I don't know, David, if you have thoughts on that.
Um, I personally, I think 2 to 4 years is fine, but in 5 years, you're getting a cheaper car, and you still, um, as long as I think Probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $5,000 to $7,000 is when you start getting into this, reliability, serviceability question. I'm not saying that there aren't $5,000 cars out there. There used to be $2,000 cars. There just aren't anymore. I've had clients that have gone out and tried to buy cheap cars for cash, and they're going to have to spend probably 4 or 5,000. But there are good cars for $7,500. There are good cars for $10,000, and those can be 10-year-old, 15-year-old cars with 150 or 200,000 miles if they've been well maintained and all those kinds of things. So the whole world is available to you, and a good car is something that'll get you back and forth to work, that is in good mechanical shape and um, does what you need it for it to do.
Yeah. I have another question, not really related to the topic we're on, but it just kind of came up.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on car dealerships where they don't have salespeople? So Carvana, you have CarMax, I think Auto Trader may have something, Enterprise may have something where they can sell you used or new cars,
Hmm.
and it's just like the ball's in your court, you choose and all that stuff, where
Yep.
you're not dealing with a salesperson. What are your thoughts with that?
Last car I bought for my wife. She unfortunately somebody ran into her and she totaled her vehicle, so we had to go buy a used car. We bought that car at CarMax, and there are salespeople there, but they are non-commissioned salespeople. They're salaried, so they're not motivated by the price of the car. They're gonna make their salary whether they sell it for $50,000 or $100,000. So, but they're salaried, they're non-commissioned, and I thought the process was fantastic. And this isn't really an endorsement of CarMax. The process is easy at a place like that, CarMax and Carvana, or a no haggle dealership that there are some out there. But the chances are pretty good that you're probably going to pay a little bit more. If it's worth it to you to pay a little bit more to avoid the hassle of negotiating and all the things that come with the downsides of working with a dealership, that's a great way to go. I think Carvana and CarMax and no haggle dealerships are an excellent way to consider doing things. But know that they have to get their cars somewhere, and they have to pay a little extra for them because they're not dealing with the trade-ins and they don't have some of the things that a new car dealer does, and that adds a little bit to the price of the car. So you're probably going to pay a little bit more. I was okay doing it. My wife was okay doing it because we found the car that we wanted at a price that was approximately what we were willing to pay. So it worked out great for us.
Yeah, so if CarMax and Carvana, if y'all are watching this, like reach out to me. I need a sponsorship. Um, no, but like honestly, like you said, the price for the car, like a sticker price on a website or a company like that compared to a dealership, is typically higher because they're factoring in that the experience, the ease of process where you don't have to negotiate, and it is easier on the buying experience. So if that is something you value, you don't want the headache of driving out to a dealership, negotiating, saying no to all the service packages and whatnot, then could absolutely be worth it. I will say my trade-in experience with CarMax was really great. I had a car that I couldn't get sold anywhere. Actually, it was that initial car I financed, and no one would buy it. Just the timing, no one really cared. But then CarMax bought it for more than what I was selling on Facebook Marketplace, and so I was like, all right, sweet, and it was super easy to sell
Yeah.
um, to them, and literally just walked out with a check. So that
Yep.
was fantastic.
Yep.
All right, so moving on to the next set of questions, I want to talk about common scams and red flags of kind of getting more into the nitty gritty of what we were alluding to earlier in terms of sales and things like that. So the first question, kind of dive more into that pushiness, aggressive, or like overly aggressive salespeople mentality, or like some people say icky car sales guys. Like kind of describe more about why that is, like why there's so much pressure for them.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, the statistics we learned as salespeople and as dealers were that if someone came on the lot and did not buy while they were there, your chances of selling them were going to go way down. So that's certainly one of the main reasons is you essentially got to you've got to, if you're a dealer, you have to latch on to the people and try to do everything you can to try to put them in a car while they're there, because if you don't, you're not going to see them. You're not going to get that chance to sell them. Um, so that's probably one of the main things, but there's also quite a bit of turnover in the sales business. If you'll notice, I mean, if you go into a dealership, if you've ever been in there, I got to talk to my manager is one of the things that salespeople will always say.
Very
And
familiar. Yes.
dealers, managers, general managers, sales managers are not going to put their livelihood in the hands of a 22-year-old who's not going to be there 90 days from now. They're going to put in processes in place that don't allow that salesperson to do it. So the salesperson is under pressure from other people to wrap that deal up while they've got the people and to do it in, frankly, whatever manner that they can do it in. So most people aren't, they do receive a lot of training and they do have a lot of practice, but it's kind of the 80-20 rule. Only about 20% of them are good at it. And the other 80% kind of fumble around and say some things that they probably shouldn't say. And as such, kind of come across as maybe a little unclean or slimy or sleazy or however you want to look at it. I've been in the business, so I feel a little loyalty to my former
Yeah.
whatever, but it can come across as that. So that's certainly you got to look at. There's things that are happening today on a vehicle before a salesperson ever greets you that can tell you you're in for a fight. I've got a dealer, there's dealers that are close by that I've looked at their cars and they'll have addendum stickers and this is additional to the manufacturer's suggested retail price, the Monroney sticker, which is required to be on every new car. They'll have an additional sticker which will have products on it, such as ceramic coating or Scotch Guard or fabric protection or things like that. And I know from personal experience that I was able to purchase those kinds of products for about 50 to $100. And you can go to AutoZone or O'Reilly's and get Scotch Guard for your seats. And they're charging 1950, 2450, thousands of dollars for products that cost them about $100 to $150 to put on. That's before you start. And all that is designed to essentially increase the sticker price to build in more profit for them to either make more profit or give themselves more negotiating room when it comes time to talk about the trade or other kinds of things. So even before the salesperson walks up, you can see that there's things that are done that are gonna create. I looked at a deal sheet that when my daughter was buying a car about 7 months ago, and it had a line on the deal sheet that said dealer services. And I said, what's that? And it's $1,245. I said, what's that? And they said, well, we offer concierge service when you come in for service. We offer free oil changes. We offer some other things, and that's just a package we provide for you as a bonus to doing business with us. And I thought, well, it's a bonus, but you're charging me $1,245 for it. And number one, you're not supposed to put anything other than tax, title, and license on a deal sheet. So what's that doing there? He said, you know what? If that's something that's not of value to, we can take that off. And I thought, boy, that was easy. That was way too easy. And you had this on here, and if somebody doesn't know what's supposed to be and what's not supposed to be on there, they could be paying $1,250 for something they didn't even know wasn't allowed. It's just
So
there's all sorts of things that you need to be aware of and prepared for.
yeah, so you mentioned that when you're looking at that sheet, tax, title, and license are really those like necessities.
That's
If you're
correct.
seeing other things on there that you have questions about, it's not clear, or it's not something like agreed upon,
Mhm.
then those are like big question marks, or like put a tab on it to talk about
That's
like,
correct.
is this really in my best interest?
That's correct.
Um, I do want to ask a little more of a neutral question. I feel like we're painting dealerships as like bad guys, and that's
Mhm.
definitely not what I want
Yeah.
that case to be.
Yeah.
But I think knowledge wise, I'm interested in like what does a commission structure usually look like for salespeople that motivates them to sell, right? Do they have like monthly quotas? Are they a percentage of whatever the sticker price is? Do they get more for like financing and other kinds of ways you're purchasing the car, things like that?
Most dealerships, and the traditional model is the salespeople are paid off a percentage of the gross profit. So you have the selling price minus the cost of the vehicle, and that difference is the gross profit of the vehicle. So that's where the salesman will get a percentage of that. It can be 20%, 25%. One of the things that dealers do, I did it, and I'll fully admit it, is create sort of artificial things that inflate the cost to the dealer so that the salesperson has more incentive to charge a higher price so that their commission stays the same. There were reinsurance products that we would sell. So if we had an ownership interest in some of the insurance products that we sold, that we could add to the cost of the car, that would inflate the cost so that the salesperson would have to sell it at a higher price to make the commission. So you drive the cost up, and the salesperson has to raise the price to the consumer in order to make the commission that he wants to make. Most salespeople need to sell 8 to 10 cars a month, or else they're probably not going to be there very long and not going to make a good living. The average car salesperson sold around 11 to 12 cars a month, and I wouldn't imagine that's much different since I left the new car business. And a 15 to 20 car a month salesperson is above average. So, um, and good salespeople is a 6-figure business. And some of them earn it, some of them might not, but
Yeah.
just
I
look out
yeah,
for them.
my next question, kind of on the positive side, like
Mhm.
what are some green flags or things that help buyers know that, like, I don't want to say trust dealerships more, but
Mhm.
like know that the process is at least ethical for them, in their best interest, things
Mhm.
like that, that the dealership is looking out for, like what their best interest is.
Yeah, I advocate to consumers to do your homework first, and that means looking at Google reviews, looking at Yelp reviews, talking to friends, finding out from as many people as you can. If you can find a dealership that has a good reputation, that does what they say they're going to do, that provides a high level of service, that has certain things that set themselves apart from another dealership, those dealerships are worth their weight in gold. So, as a family owned dealership, I prided myself on customer service. And that was something that we sold. We told people we charge a higher price than the dealer down the street because you're going to have a free loaner car, and you're going to have certain things that we're going to do for you that other dealers don't. And we feel like the price that we charge is for that. But we were upfront about it. So if you find someone that deals with you fairly, squarely, and upfront, has a reputation for doing that, or you've had enough experience that you feel comfortable that that's the case, that dealership or that place of business or that salesperson is worth a lot and someone that you should keep in mind. It's like finding, you know, a great mechanic or anything that, that you feel comfort in because you've dealt with them before or you know enough about them to feel comfortable, that it gives you that peace of mind that allows you to sort of let your guard down, do business in a straightforward way, and not have to worry about all the runaround and crud that other folks embroil you in.
Yeah, I love how you highlight that. Um, yeah, in order for you to run a business like ethically and all that stuff, it does come at a premium, right? Just how we
Mhm.
were talking about CarMax and Carvana, they do charge a premium for that customer service experience. And I hope that y'all who are watching, the takeaway of this is not like save as much money, spend as little on your car, but more so pick apart the parts that are important in your car value, in your car buying purchase, whether it's customer service, getting a good deal, trade in, whatever it is that you identify, like those are the important parts, and you're spending so that you can get those and not spending on areas either you're not using, you're wasting, and all that stuff.
Right.
I am curious. I know there are a lot of services and products and packages that dealerships propose that we buy that aren't always in our best interest. Um, do you feel like there are some that may be good for certain buyers? I don't know if it's umbrella. There's like gap insurance or something like that. I don't know too much about those kind of things, so I'm curious what your thoughts are on those and like the scenarios those would be a best fit for.
I think it's probably a little bit personal preference. If you feel and or see value in a product, by all means, certainly consider it. Um, I just know, like extended service contracts. Let's just take that for example. And we had a high penetration, and a lot of people buy extended service contracts. And anybody that's ever had their transmission replaced and paid for by an extended service contract company is probably a fan of them. But I had extended service contracts that I bought from third parties, marked up the price, and then the third party paid the claims. I also had extended service contracts where I would pay a small fee, I would charge a price, and then I would pay the claims out of the premium, out of the money that was paid to me, that I charged the customer. My claims rate on those policies for repairs, and we repaired everything that was covered under the policy, was 13%. So that means that the amount of money that went towards repair in an extended service contract, if $1 was paid, 13 cents went towards claims. The other 87 cents went in my pocket. I don't apologize for it. We did a good job, but that's what the claims rate was on our extended service contracts where we took care of the policies. So you tell me, would it be better to pay $2,400 or $2,900 or $3,400 for an extended service contract to protect yourself from some unknown future, which is kind of fear selling? Or should you put away $100 a month in your own pocket in an envelope or a sinking fund or something like that, so that after 3 years, you could afford whatever came down the road as far as any potential repair being needed? And if it wasn't needed, you had extra money in your pocket.
Yeah, I think it's so important to highlight that 87%, like statistically, this is not just feelings or a
Mhm.
story, but this is actual data. And I want to say what I've heard generally around like 80 to 90% go unused. And so that is all profit, like great for a small business owner and all that stuff who's like running a dealership, but also something good for us to know as buyers that if we are paying into this extended service contract, knowing that ahead of time, that like we are covered, but statistically it would be in our best interest to save that money ourselves.
Yeah.
And so I guess it also depends on like other aspects of your financial situation, your current savings and all that stuff
Mhm.
on whether you want to take on that risk. It
Mhm.
I imagine very similarly with insurance, right? We
Mhm.
can do full coverage or we can just do liability.
Mhm.
And so that's all about a personalized approach to like how much risk are we willing to take and can we prepare for
Yes.
that? So I do appreciate you sharing that. Can you explain what gap insurance is? I know I could Google it, but I feel like
No.
it's
So gap insurance, if you finance a vehicle, let's say you finance it for 72 months, and you finance a $50,000 vehicle, and at the end of 3 years, you still owe $45,000 of it because you paid a bunch of the interest up front. You still owe $45,000, but the car's actually worth only $30,000, and you have a total loss in the vehicle. There's a $15,000 gap between what you owe versus what it's worth. That gap insurance covers the difference. So the good news is gap insurance would cover the difference. The bad news is if you had either bought used, had an emergency fund, done some of the things that you can do personally to protect yourself against that, gap insurance wouldn't be necessary. Gap insurance, if you look at it on its face, is extremely expensive. Same as credit life insurance, same as accident and health insurance, and those are all sold in dealerships. But they're extremely expensive, and the only way that they are sold is essentially through fear. You don't want to be caught exposed with owing more on your car than it's worth, so you need to get this gap insurance. Well, then maybe what that tells me is I might need to consider buying a used car and taking that depreciation out of the equation, or maybe look at paying cash for it, or doing a shorter term so that I don't expose myself to that negative equity that long-term financing always seems to hit you with. If you finance it for a long time, you're going to owe more than it's worth unless you put a huge down payment, because cars depreciate faster than the value.
yeah,
So,
absolutely. As we're kind of wrapping up, I did have another question. I am curious what your thoughts are on buying private party, call it Craigslist, Facebook,
mhm,
something like that,
mhm.
versus a dealership. Are there pros, cons, all that stuff, both with money, but also like the non-money stuff?
Yeah, I'd say it's similar. The concepts are probably the same when you look at buying from an individual versus a dealership. Do your homework and prepare yourself, and take all the same precautions with a person that you would a dealership. But a dealership is well lit, secure, and safe. An individual, you really need to protect yourself, because I've heard horror story after horror story of going to somebody's house at 9 o'clock at night and looking at a car, and bad things happen. Take somebody with you, meet in a well-lit place, do as much research as you can in advance, and any deal can be found at any place if you do enough preparation in advance for it. So there's not really one over another. It's just prepare yourself for all eventualities to give yourself the best chance to protect yourself financially. It's the same pretty much with anything, but especially in the second biggest purchase that most people make next to their house, which is a vehicle.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know if it's like official, but I will say that yeah, cars are one of the, or if not the most, like the biggest wealth killer for most families, and especially as you're trading up and all that stuff.
Mhm.
But yeah, kind of like I just keep getting flashbacks of when I have car buying experiences, and I've had good and horrible experiences
Mhm.
buying used
Yeah.
from private party, but also from dealerships. And
Hmm.
so I guess there's no magic with it that is like you can encounter all these problems no matter how you're buying a car. And so
Hmm.
what's most important is that you're prepared, you know yourself both emotionally and financially before you're buying the car, because if you have more information, you have more power, and you can walk away from the table and not get taken for. So
Absolutely.
I do want to highlight as we're wrapping up the your course, the don't get taken for a ride.
Mhm.
Give me a little snapshot of like what people can expect when going through this content. If you have any like tangible numbers to share with that, or like the concepts and ideas you'll be walking them through with that.
I know that I feel very comfortable saying that many of the things that I've shared with you here today can save you several $1,000s, and if not five figures plus. I mean, I know from personal experience, knowing this saved me $15,000. Knowing this could have saved you $10,000 if you'd known many of these things. So a very small amount of investment in my class can yield a tremendous amount of savings because you're talking to someone who did it for 40 years and tell you anything and everything you want to know about every potential eventuality that can happen at a dealership with an individual or buying a car, period. So I do this one-on-one or with groups. So if you contacted me, we'd set up a one-on-one visit or a visit with you and someone that you're living with, or a group. If you had some friends that wanted to take it, I do offer group discounts for the class that I teach, and would be happy to sit down with anyone and go over all this information or what's most specific to you. I'm looking at this place for this car at this price. Happy to help you walk you through that process to help you get the best potential savings and serve your best financial interest long term.
I love that. And I think it's so important to highlight that you can be actively looking for a car right now, or window shopping, or you'll end up needing a car because that sun damaged, beat up car is probably going to need to get replaced at some point. Like, this is valuable information that we will absolutely need if you drive a car. Now, if you're like in some city where you don't need a car, like, okay, y'all can still hire David as your financial coach because he's
That's
super
right.
awesome.
Thank you.
But yeah, when it comes to these car buying mistakes, yeah, I could have saved ten to $20,000 in mistakes, but I didn't. I had to learn through experience, and so I've been burned. I got the scars, and hopefully y'all don't get the scars as well, because that could have bought me a whole other car, y'all. That's a
Absolutely.
lot of money.
Absolutely.
So I forgot if I caught it, but how can they reach out to you in order to go through your car buying course? Don't get taken for a ride.
You can text or call me at 903-746-2952. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram at David Houston9. It's Houston spelled like Houston. I'm on LinkedIn. And my email address is davidhouston@sbcglobal.net. So just reach out to me, shoot me a text. Hey, I'm interested in your class. I'll give you a holler or a text back, let you know what the pricing is, see how many people you want to try to involve in this. If it's just you and a spouse, maybe a group, give you some pricing and we can go from there. It's as I said, a minimal investment for a potentially massive savings.
I love that. And so if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm gonna put it in the description and or comments. Just make it really easy. Click it, all that stuff. If you're seeing some kind of clip of this, I'll tag David or on whatever social media that is.
And it's designed to
Um,
be with you, interactive. So whatever questions you have, whatever specific needs you have, we'll be working through it together, one on one or one on group.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I think that live experience is so valuable because they have a lot of YouTube videos, and but it's like sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and so you're searching for things that you kind of know about, but there's a lot of things you don't. And so I think that ignorance gap that you kind of can fill with the course is fantastic. So I guess as we close out, I want to kind of get your single piece of advice. You might have already said it, but just as like a takeaway point, an action step for the viewers or listeners, however you're consuming this content. One piece of advice, a nugget of wisdom for someone who is ready to buy a car and yeah, that they're just ready to buy a car.
Yeah. I kind of think of the John Wooden quote, or it's probably been said by someone else, but failing to prepare is preparing to fail. So if you don't prepare for the process of buying a car, you are potentially putting yourself at risk of losing thousands of your valuable dollars. And there's no need for that. There's people out there that can help you. I'm one of them, would be happy to do so. So prepare as well as you can in advance so that you can get yourself the best use of your resources, your money, and save as much as you possibly can.
I love that. All right. Well, thank you so much, David, for spending time with us, sharing your never ending wisdom. And this is just like the tip of the iceberg with what we can better understand about saving money on cars and just all things personal finance management. So, yeah, that's it, everyone. This is hopefully the first or second. I don't know. I've done a couple of these, but I would like to do a series of bringing in subject matter experts. So if y'all have any suggestions, comments, or people you want to bring in, whether it's psychology related, finance related, whatever relates to saving money, managing your money stress better, all that stuff, I hope to bring that content to y'all. But that is all. Thank you, David, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.